apparently the ambassador was killed. There have been a number of reports out there about possible smoke inhalation, but again, there was also these rocket-propelled grenades that were being shot at the consulate. So we simply don't know all the details at this point, but obviously it's very fluid, and we do expect to hear more in about an hour's time.
And there have been, there was a time, just prior to this, where in Libya and in Egypt, the country has been trying to get itself back on its feet after months of a lot of instability, and now, because of what some are saying, this leaked film that has been released. Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, this is a film that was put out by an Israeli-American filmmaker in conjunction with an Egyptian-American, Christian Egyptian-American, and it's a very blatantly provocative film that's anti-Islam. It not only portrays Prophet Muhammad, but does so in a very insulting way. And this was something that apparently was targeted for an Egyptian audience, and this is where we saw that initial reaction in Cairo, with them attempting to storm the embassy, putting up an Islamist flag. But this reaction in Benghazi is much more severe. This sort of attack that overwhelmed security at the consulate, I think it's fair to say, was completely unexpected. And so it was a deliberately provocative film that was put out there. They may not have realized that this was going to be the extent of the violence that clearly is happening.
As gunfire rings out in Benghazi, the US consulate burns. Those guarding the building were surprised and overwhelmed. They soon retreated as unknown gunmen shot at the compound and threw handmade bombs. One American has been killed, another injured. It's believed the attack is in protest at a film produced in the US, which is said to humiliate the Prophet Muhammad.
Don't make our people angry, because they will kill, they will fight, they will do such a situation. This is a situation because of the Americans channels. They want to say something bad about our Prophet.
But the United States has condemned the attack in the strongest terms. It says it's now working with Libyan security forces to secure the building from looters and further attacks. Julie Peacock, BBC News.
Put your head between my thighs. Do you see this devil still?
Yes.
Now do you see him?
He's gone. Khadija, he's gone. How have you done this? And this shall be the first Muslim animal.
What is your name? Yafor. His name is Yafor. Yafor, do you like the women? No. Yafor does not like the women. Yafor!
Please, my cousin, you must help us.
I will help you, Khadija. I will make a book for him. It will be a mix between some versions from the Torah and some versions from the New Testament, and mix them into false verses.
And the inspiration has disappeared.
Waraka is dead, and the inspiration has disappeared.
Don't understand. What is the relationship between Waraka's death and the inspiration?
No, I must return to the mountain. Find a solution or kill myself. I've been to the top of the mountain to jump and kill myself twice before.
He said the world is asking us to wait. Wait for what, I asked.
Those in the international community who refuse to put red lines before Iran don't have a moral right to place a red light before Israel.
And last night, there was a phone call between Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Obama, to try to smooth things over. Jenna, we don't know exactly what was said in that call, or if people are now on more friendly terms. Back to you.
Leland, thank you very much. Back to Senator Graham now. So, Senator, we have these big international stories in the Middle East. Where do we stand?
They're not working. They're hurting the Iranian economy, but they're not stopping the Iranian behavior of acquiring a nuclear weapon. They have two goals in Iran, the Ayatollahs. Number one, to get nuclear capability that will protect the regime, because they believe if they get a nuclear weapon, the West will leave them alone. And the second goal is to use that nuclear power to intimidate their neighbors and spread Persian Shia influence. It's clear to me they're never going to change their nuclear desires until they believe the survival of the regime's at stake. And sanctions and diplomacy is not working. We should have red lines communicated to Iran quickly, coordinated with Israel, and they must believe, the Iranians, that a massive U.S. military strike will come their way if they continue to acquire a nuclear weapon. The region is about to blow up. I was in Iraq. It breaks my heart to see Iraq fall apart. Syria is a contagion affecting the entire Mideast. This administration has no concept of the Arab Spring. They're disengaging on all fronts. The lack of leadership is about to lead to an explosion in the Mideast. And I hope people will start focusing on foreign policy, because it really does matter.
You said the region is about to blow up. What do you mean by that specifically?
The American disengagement, lack of leadership, leading from behind, is leading to uncertainty and doubt on all fronts. The Sunnis, the Shias, and the Kurds that were working together well after the surge success have now gone back into their corners. We've got a sort of a hands-off policy toward Iraq. There have been no progress in filling the ministries and having a hydrocarbon law. Every group, the Sunni, Shia, and Kurds, are just very disappointed with Americans' disengagement.
New information on the deadly riots in Libya, where an angry mob murdered the U.S. ambassador, Chris Stevens, and 3 other Americans. What we're now learning about the film that rioters claim sparks all this violence. We're live with that story and continuing coverage of the developing situation. Also keeping an eye on the U.S. Capitol building. They are about to lower the flag there to half-staff in honor of the late Ambassador Stevens, a man who was so widely regarded by both Democrats and Republicans on Capitol Hill, well known to many of them as a career civil servant. Ambassador Stevens killed when an angry mob climbed the walls of the U.S. Embassy in Cairo, Egypt. They pulled down the American flag and briefly replaced it with an Islamic banner. Now we're learning more about the film supposedly at the center of all this violence. Our chief intelligence correspondent, Catherine Herridge, is live in Washington with that. Catherine.
Well, John, good morning and thank you. What we know about the filmmaker comes from a brief interview he gave to the Associated Press after the violence against the U.S. consulate in Benghazi and the U.S. Embassy in Cairo. Described by the AP as a California real estate developer who self-identifies as an Israeli Jew, the filmmaker Sam Basile said, quote, "This is a political movie. The U.S. lost a lot of money and a lot of people in wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, but we're fighting with ideas." As we saw the demonstrations unfold in Cairo, the initial reporting saying the catalyst was a 13-minute English-language trailer for the film called Innocence of Muslims that was posted on YouTube. While Fox News has not reviewed the film, it reportedly depicts the Prophet Muhammad in a negative light, including accusations of fraud and sexual abuse. The director, who is now said to be in hiding, commenting on the savage attacks, including the assault at the consulate in Libya where the U.S. ambassador was killed along with 3 others. Director Sam Basile telling the AP, quote, "I feel the security system at the embassies is no good. America should do something to change it." A short time ago, the Secretary of State saying no matter how inflammatory the material, the attacks could not be legitimized.
Some have sought to justify this vicious behavior along with the protests that took place at our embassy in Cairo yesterday as a response to inflammatory material posted on the internet. America's commitment to religious tolerance goes back to the very beginning of our nation. But let me be clear, there is no justification for this.
And the question here is one of timing. Former intelligence official telling Fox that the attacks coming on the anniversary of 9/11 would suggest that it was not the film alone that may have sparked that violence, John.
I know you've been in touch with some of your sources about what happened in Libya as well as Cairo. What are they telling you?
Well, one of the questions I've heard repeatedly raised is whether the attack on the U.S. ambassador was a targeted attack. What's been pointed out to me is that at the consulate in Benghazi, there is less security, if you will. He would have been more vulnerable than at the embassy proper in Tripoli. And then again, how was it that these individuals knew that the U.S. ambassador was at that consulate? Again, we don't have those answers, but that, I believe, is something to watch as we learn more about what happened there, John.
And again, your garden variety protesters don't generally have access to rocket-propelled grenades. Catherine Herridge in Washington, thank you.